I grew up outside Philadelphia. I was mainstreamed, the only deaf student in the school. I went to the same school for 14 years, so kindergarten, pre-first, first through 12th grade. At that time, I used hearing aids. In third grade, I started using an FM system, but no interpreter in grade school or high school. When I graduated, I went to college in New Hampshire, a college called Dartmouth College, and I majored in both religious studies and biochemistry, molecular biology. So I had a double major at Dartmouth. And I stayed at Dartmouth for medical school. And I moved to Rochester after I graduated from medical school to do research in the Sharia NTID. I taught at NTID for 2 years, and then I transferred to the University of Rochester Medical Center to train in pediatrics. I had my microphone system and very small classes because I went to a private school. So that was the benefit, that the classes were small. I always met one-on-one initially with my mom when I was a young child. And then by myself, I took on that responsibility of teaching my teachers for the year about my hearing loss and what I needed in the classroom, and my coaches for sports. At college, sometimes I had to be more assertive in terms of accommodations, in terms of having and finding advocates for testing accommodations or classroom accommodation. So I worked with the accommodations office to get what I needed. So I knew the law, the ADA, so I was familiar with the requirements under the ADA 504 Disabilities Act. But I also got to know the dean well, and that was a strategy that benefited me later when my accommodation started to be looked into. Eventually that process was dropped because the dean came to the conclusion that the college would provide anything that I needed to get the best education that I could. Medical school was probably the biggest challenge, trying to figure out and defend myself as becoming a physician. And most of the faculty accepted or were very interested or curious about my abilities to become a doctor. How would I do these things? I always took the approach of sometimes I didn't know because I had never been in that situation. I was very clear about that and open about that. But they could see in me that I was very creative, proactive in identifying situations and finding preliminary solutions as best as I could predict. And then while I was doing rotations or in the operating room, whatever the situation was, I made sure that I was in touch with the people who were responsible for accommodation, giving them feedback or letting them know things that were working or not. Residency had its own challenges, and again, a challenge of during the application process, do I disclose my hearing loss on the application and on during the interviews? Do I request an interpreter? So all of those I experienced asking myself, like, what do I want to do? I came to the conclusion that I wanted to be in a program that supported me, again, same as my grade school and college and medical school. I wanted to be in a situation that supported me. So my decision to disclose that in my personal statement and in my interviews was essential for me. It's risky that I wouldn't match into a program with that decision, but again, I was fortunate enough to find a training program here at the University of Rochester that understood my needs, understood my abilities, and potential contribution to the medical field. My father was an orthopedic surgeon, now retired, and he was a good role model for me to look up to and see how he lived every day and took care of his patients. He was a community-based orthopedic surgeon, so he had a private practice. And I always saw how well supported and appreciated he was by the community that he served. And so he was a good role model for me. It's interesting, when I decided to apply to medical school, he was somewhat discouraging to me because the medical field had been changing with insurance and payment and reimbursement. And where I grew up in Pennsylvania, it was a big deal for doctors during that time. So he was discouraged with that the art of medicine was lacking and was disappearing. So medicine wasn't the same as when he decided to go into to practice. But he supported me, and I went forward with my decision. But my interest goes way back to probably my interest in science, in general sciences, biological sciences, and chemistry, physics, and just my academic and personal interest in that area. And then, as I mentioned, my majors were both religious and science. And it was a good balance for me. That's just how my mind functioned. But both of those areas have to do with dilemmas, with life and death, with pursuit of the unknown and trying to understand the unknown. And you can find that through faith. You can find it through science. And some people choose one and go with it. The same way that I grew up both in the hearing world and the deaf world. I like that role of being in two places at the same time. And medicine gives that to me, figuring out life through faith and religious beliefs and the spirit of humanity, and also through science, research, education. The first reason was because I thought that kids are innocent, and with my ideas about religion and science, if you take an innocent child and you take care of them, you can have more influence than if you take an adult who's already made decisions in their life and try to change them. So I thought that I would have more influence over their health and their well-being on Earth during their life if I took care of them as a child. The same is true, like while I was going through medical school, I started learning about kids, and both in development and with chronic illness, you have an opportunity during their young life to influence them. I often heard saying that pediatrics is taking care of kids who don't have decisions about their health, where the most of adult health can be correlated with decisions that they've made, that we have made growing up and into adulthood. So it's the innocence of children that drew me to taking care of kids. I do have a special interest in pediatric families that either have deaf parents or deaf children in the family. So of course that's from my personal experience with hearing loss, with signing, and my feeling that I need to give back to and serve the deaf community here in Rochester. I'll start by two quotes. One that I live by. One, as a deaf person, I always remember King Jordan's phrase, "The only thing a deaf person cannot do is hear." So that I remember that. And so I know my abilities. I know my deficits, but the things that I'm not good at, things that I can't do. And I'm aware of them, and I figure out how do I get around them. So I maintain a good sense of creativity and self-awareness that gives me the ability to get around obstacles. The other thing that I have, and this comes from a poster that my brother had on his wall growing up, the quote is, "Find a way or make a way," meaning that there might already be a solution to the challenges that we face, but it's important to find them so you don't have to become frustrated and struggle with coming up with your own way. And also you can educate and prove to the people who are making decisions about your admission or your training that it's already been done. And that's a huge power to us as a minority of individuals with disabilities, especially hearing that in the medical situation, to have precedent that people have already done this. And the other thing is just ask questions, educate yourself, learn, be passionate about wanting to go through with your education. And just remember, you can start with an interest, and if that ever changes, that's okay. Many people drop out and don't want to do it anymore or find a better personal fit with what you want to do. So the medical education, nursing education, veterinary education process is very long. And so for that process itself, you need to be confident and you need to be persistent. If at any time you feel like it's not for you, it's okay to drop out and find something else. But at the same time, if you continue and you persist with it, the benefits of being in the medical field are amazing. I think that we benefit from an increasing number, and being in a grant-supported educational program is a tremendous benefit to the Rochester area, given our community here of very smart individuals who are interested in science. And I encourage anybody who is interested to get involved, to start to investigate what the requirements are, and to just start researching information and educate yourself, and spend a little bit of time by yourself looking into seeing if it's a good fit for the area.